Okay, so here we are with the Pride of Palatka, right there, Pride of Palatka 2, and we're down here at the riverfront today for the Bartram Festival and doing some river tours, and I believe we've got a historian coming on this tour. I'll show you. There's our beautiful riverfront. I think we have a historian who's coming and going to talk about the origins of the river and the flow and the depth and all of those type of things. So this is a typical day in the life of a captain, right? We've got about half of our passengers on board. I think we've got another half coming. The boat is 45 feet long and it can carry up to almost 50 passengers, but I think we're sailing more with about 35 today. The Pride of Palatka 2 docks at the Boathouse Marina in Palatka, and here we've pulled it around to the city docks in order to load our passengers. Have a great view of the beautiful waterfront in downtown Palatka, as well as a great opportunity to watch all the people shrimping from the public docks. Joining us today are Lisa Reineman from the St. John's River Keeper. She's going to be talking about all sorts of aspects of the river, from the flow to the tidal to the algae blooms, all different aspects of what's going on with the St. John's River and how everyone can help protect it. And Sam Carr, local historian and organizer of the Bartram Frolic, is also going to be on board giving information about Bartram's 1774 fall visit to the St. John's River and how he spent his time on the river and what it was like in those days.
Don't worry about too much about it and everything, and so we'll try to point out what we can nature-wise and all of that, but we'll be talking about a lot of the stuff that Bartram did while he was here.
As we rode along, several people took notes on what Sam was telling about the river, and just about everybody had trouble keeping their cameras in their laps. There were so many pretty things to take pictures of.
He stayed here while he was in Florida. We were his hometown. And it was so cool. Then you started thinking about all of the really neat stories that William Bartram writes, like the alligator killing happened right here. And the watermelon feast happened right back where you're enjoying the frolic. The Indian frolic, it happened right here. And
While Sam gave his lecture, my job was to keep track of where in the river we were located, where was the next Bartram Trail point of observation where we wanted to slow down and look. Here's an area where there was a slide that people take out on the river and on holidays set it up for people to slide down. From the helm, I'm watching a hummingbird fish finder, and I use it on the tracking screen where I can see the navigation, see the turns in the river. It tells me my speed, tells me direction, gives me a lot of information. I'm also watching the flow meters constantly where I want to know exactly what RPMs I am running the engines at. Here they're running at about 3100 RPMs, and I'm getting 10 knots out of it. The boat travels quite distinctly differently whether it is loaded or not loaded, and I like to run it around 9 or 10 knots. Anything above that and the noise gets a little bit loud and echoey under the cabin top, and I just like to factor in whether I'm going to have wind and tide against me, or is the wind and tide going to be with me, or am I going to have some sort of a combination of the two, because my goal is generally to get the vessel to the next Bartram Trail point of interest in a timely manner and have enough time to make the return trip without too much strain on myself, the boat, or the passengers. This spot on the St. John's River is my favorite of the Bartram Trail locations because this is the site of Rollstown. This was the colony of Dennis Rolls, an English philanthropist. The settlement was originally 200 indentured servants from the streets of London, and it was founded in 1767. It did not prosper, and the settlers scattered. The slaves were imported to tend cattle, cultivate citrus, and extract turpentine, but the colony was abandoned in 1783 when Britain ceded Florida to Spain. Roll returned to England, and the settlers moved and resettled in the Bahamas, and that's why you hear of so many of the Roll surnames when you are in the Bahamas. A couple times in recent years, Bahamians have traveled up to Palatka to view this historic site, and so that's why it's one of my favorite, because of the close ties to the Bahamas. On our first trip, on the way back, we passed by this restaurant on the banks of the St. Johns River. This is Corky Seafood Restaurant, and they have a dock where you can come up to the dock and go in to have lunch or dinner. It's always nice crowd there, beautiful views, and I always like to toot the horn as we go by. Once we got back to the dock, we decided we would head up and look at some of the displays. This is a William Bartram display with a lot of historical information and storytelling, and then we thought we would head up for something to eat for dinner. We passed by what looked like a photo shoot for a quinceanera, and then I also got to see the sheriff's vessel, which I always enjoy seeing these big workboats out on the water. Next we headed up the next street up, and what a charming little street with these brick sidewalks where you could sit out inside and enjoy the view. We stopped at a wine shop, but they didn't have anything to eat, so we headed on to Angel's Diner, Florida's oldest diner, established in 1932. It is in a railroad car, and I've read that nobody knows for sure whether it's an actual real car or a replica. Okay, so the first trip went really well, and we are starving, so we stopped here at Angel's Diner so that we could get some enormous cheeseburgers. Angel's Diner is a staple in Palatka, and they offer a pusilo, which is a specialty drink. It's chocolate milk with vanilla additive in it, and they also have black bottom, which is basically, I think, breakfast, lunch, and dinner all rolled into one sandwich, and famous mustard relish. I don't think I've ever seen anyone quite so nervous about attacking a burger, but I think this is not even the full pound or the 3/4 pound. This is the half pound, and they come not only with fries but also with some onion rings. One of them's already been eaten immediately. That's how good it was. Next, once we were done with dinner, we walked along back toward the river and really admired the brickwork on these gorgeous old buildings. Just absolutely beautiful views from these buildings and full of charm and character. There was some really nice landscaping that I admired. And as we headed back, I wanted to get a couple shots of the boat from a distance because most of my pictures are from on the boat. So I was glad to have that opportunity, and we loaded up with our crew. This was a wine tour, and the fun was about to begin. Okay, so here we are. We're about to check our lights and get ready for a sunset cruise. It's really bright out right now. We've got a 5 to 7. It's a wine, I think it's a wine and beer cruise, or maybe just wine, I don't know. And I'm not even sure if we're going north or south on the river, but we're going, and it's just been an absolutely beautiful day here on the St. Johns River. And I see we've got some bartenders, and they're already pouring, and everybody's getting their seats, so we're almost ready to cast off. So here's the boat. Here's our pretty outboards. Here's a beautiful Memorial Bridge and the river. And the noise behind me, that funny clunk clunk noise, that's the sound of people shrimping. And unlike on a wood dock where it makes a thump when the lead weights hit the floor, this is on a metal dock, so it goes thump thump thump. Shrimping is pretty good sport in the evenings here on the St. Johns River. They are kind of brackish shrimp, sort of like saltwater, freshwater brackish water shrimp, and everybody likes to get their max 5 gallons. Great way to feed the family. Here comes Bob Bernstein, one of the organizers of the event, and he's helping get all the passengers loaded. We noticed that this year, after several years of this trip, we noticed that people were starting to bring a lot of hors d'oeuvres and really just elevating the whole experience of the riverboat tour. They brought shrimp platters and all sorts of crudités and just a little bit of extra things to enjoy with their wine. Okay, so the boat is filling up. You can hear from the level that this is the wine tour. So we've got an Indian, a William Bartram, I think we've got the tax collector and some other local dignitaries, and all sorts of people on the boat. And we're just waiting for the last couple passengers before we cast off. We departed the dock right on time and immediately set a course to the south, and our goal was to reach Dunn's Creek. We wanted to be able to see the Rollstown spot, a couple other spots, and make it all the way to Dunn's Creek and nose in there a little bit and just explore and hear a little bit more about the history. Sam Carr was there giving us more of the Bartram Trail history and the Bartram Frolics, and tell us about Bartram's travels on the river. Hoyt Muir is here pouring lots of wine. He had a couple helpers with this, and of course I was at the helm watching to see that we were maintaining course and speed and that our distance was good and that we were going to make it all the way to Dunn's Creek. I knew that the current was going to be running against me on the way down to Dunn's Creek, and it would be with me on the way back, so that would give me a little bit of a lift, but also I had to factor in that there were some turns in the river that we would be running against the wind and some that we would be running with. So I set us up at about 3,100 RPMs, and we maintained 9, 10, and occasionally 11 knots. We had beautiful, beautiful golden light coming in. We could see some of the cypress trees. The large ones are gone. As we made the final turn to the west, everyone got their cameras ready because we knew we were going to be seeing some gorgeous shots of the sunset right off of Sunset Point, which is where the old paddle wheeler, the Hiawatha, used to be wrecked, and you could see it back in the 70s and 80s. We were heading west right toward downtown Palatka. Last round of wine, last view of the Memorial Bridge, and last chance to really get some good photos. The William Bartram character also read from Bartram's travels with his account of what it looked like when they were moving into the sunset at that exact same location. I imagined at any moment I was going to see some Indians in one of those cypress canoes just drifting along. Instead, we saw some shrimpers that were throwing nets and gathering shrimp, but it was just really nice to see people out on the water, for everyone to get out there and enjoy the spectacular river. Our final approach to the dock took us right past Memorial Bridge, and I took that opportunity to get a unique view of the bridge from the water instead of from land. Treated to the gorgeous view of the sunset to the west, and then the pinkish salmony reflection of the sunset to the east, where it was reflecting off of the water. Our final approach back to Boathouse Marina took us past the dock, and it was really wonderful to see the sky just looking like flames and to watch those crabbers and shrimpers one last time working on their traps and their nets and fishing off of the city pier. It was just a fantastic day to be on the water. Can't thank the Bartram Trail group and the Bartram Frolic group enough for the opportunity to take some people out on the water, let them learn a little bit more about the St. Johns River, and enjoy a day on the Pride of Palatka. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe so that you get notifications for further videos. We have a lot more coming up. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!